good morning, good evening, good night, whatever time of day it may be for you to be watching this. Welcome to Led by the Word with
Mitchell,
Liz,
Chloe,
and I'm Faith, and today we are starting in 2 Kings 16 through 17, and unfortunately these are not the best chapters of the Bible concerning the
they are not very happy.
They're
not positive.
chapters.
just one bit.
We're going to let Liz start us out this time. Okay.
So the story begins in the 17th year of Pekah. And Ahaz is just beginning his rule in Judah. He was 20 years old when he became king and reigned for 16 years. He, like the others before him, did not do what was right in the eyes of God. He even went to the extent of sacrificing his son by fire in his paganism. So the rulers of Syria and Israel then came up to make war with Ahaz. The king of Syria had taken over Elath at that time. Ahaz, in his fear, sent messengers to Assyria, begging for his help. He even called himself the king's servant and sent him silver and gold from the treasuries.
They just never learn. They keep giving away God's treasures.
Yeah.
Every time.
It was God's treasures and even his own. Like his own from the king's house, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, here's just all my gold. Please come save me.
And so the king of Assyria decided to help him and took over Damascus and took captive of the people and killed the king of Syria. When Ahaz went down to the king of Assyria and found his altar and sent for the priest to take note of the pattern of the altar so that he could remake it for himself.
Okay. So this king was known as being probably the worst king in Judah at the time.
Good old Ahaz.
Sacrificing his own children to Molech or Moloch, however you'd like to describe him. This god was known for his child sacrifice. It was not good at all.
Not just the king sacrificing, but letting his people sacrifice their kids, too.
Yeah, it was really... So how this would happen is... I've done some research. There are a bunch of different ways that people say, you know, the god is set up or whatever. Most of the time, it was basically just a metal image of a man with a bull's head. Some say he had his arms stretched out like this. They would make the metal really, really hot by building a fire underneath it. And there was either a ramp that went from the hands to the stomach where they would set a child on top of the hands, and the child would basically burn and bake on this image. And when the child would scream, they would bang drums and, you know, shout or whatever they would do to keep the family of that child from hearing the child screaming and keep them from having their hearts saddened. And that is something so horrible.
Oh, that's not morbid one bit.
There's people who, like, they say that there's still people who do this today. And I am so surprised that this is still a thing. Like, that is horrible.
It's been going on for generations up to that point, too, because it even says in Leviticus that the Lord spake to Moses, saying, Thou shalt say to the children of Israel, Whosoever he be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn in Israel, that giveth any of his seed to Molech, the altar, the god, whatever, he shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones, and I will set my face against that man, and I will cut him off from among his people, because he hath given of his seed unto Molech, to defile my sanctuary and to profane my holy name. And if the people of the land do any ways hide their eyes from the man which he giveth of his seed unto Molech, and kill him not, then I will set my face against that man and against his family, and will cut him off. That was Leviticus 21 through 5.
So the repercussions of sacrificing to Molech, according to God, was, you know, absolutely horrible. You're going to die if you sacrifice your child to Molech. That's what God was saying. So, and this king of Judah in God's own country, God's specific place, decided he would sacrifice his child. That is amazing to me. That is amazing how far this king went against God. Chloe, do you have anything?
I wanted to mention the high priest Uriah,
Yeah.
who, you know, he's the high priest, but he's like, you know what? Yeah, I'll do evil with you, Ahaz. And like that's one of the worst parts about
you,
King
bro.
Ahaz. That's one of the worst parts about Ahaz because like his evil and destruction, it wasn't just upon him. He spread it to other
It
leaders.
influenced the people
Yeah.
of even God's temple.
So I had a quote that I wrote down. I studied in like the late hours of the night, so I don't remember if I found this somewhere or if I said it myself. So
Oh, boy.
if someone out there has said this,
Delirious.
credits to you because I don't remember. But so I wrote down, a lot of people settle for less because they don't want to wait on the greatness God has for them. And so like, you know, Uriah chose evil with Ahaz, and I think like if he would have stayed and like, you know, would have been a priest. If he would have been a better
duty.
priest, he could have been called higher to like greater things, but he didn't want to wait around. He was just like, oh, I'll go with you, Ahaz.
Why not?
Yeah.
You know, like, because the king was great in power. He could benefit Ahaz, or was that his name? What was his name?
What, the king?
Uriah.
Yeah, Uriah.
He could benefit Uriah, you know, basically any materialistic way that Uriah wanted to be benefited.
Uriah almost had an option too, because it says King Ahab commanded Uriah, saying, "Upon the great altar burn the morning burnt offering and the evening meat offering, and the king's burnt sacrifice and his meat offering with the burnt offering of all the people of the land, and their meat offering and their drink offerings, and sprinkle upon it all the blood of the burnt offering and all the blood of the sacrifice, and the brazen altar shall be for me to inquire by." Thus did Uriah the priest, according to all that King Ahaz commanded. So the king Ahaz leaves Uriah for a while and tells him to continue sacrificing. And Uriah just keeps going. It has no problem. It's fine.
I mean, he could have
Keep going.
stopped. So a lot of chapter 16, actually just about all of chapter 16, is Ahaz and his idolatry, where he sacrifices his son. Then he gives away all of the gold to be saved by another king instead of asking the Lord, you know, to help him. And then more idolatry by building another altar, and then he dies. That's basically the end of chapter 16.
That sounds
Are
like
we
a fulfilling
surprised by the idolatry at this point? Because, like,
No.
Israel constantly, like, every chapter, it's like, oh, we have a new king and he's great, but they're still burning incense.
In the
There's-
high places.
Yeah, high places, still there. They built
They
them.
still smell like incense.
Still burning that.
I
And
mean,
it's like,
to be fair, Ahaz seems like one of the worst of the bunch.
oh, yeah, he's
100%.
the worst
Because
king
he
of
didn't
Judah.
just allow these high places to be, you know, continuously burning, but he also built altars and kind of sacrificed his children. Did we mention that?
I thought it was interesting, though, that he sent to the king of Assyria and said, "I'm your servant and your son." Like, he humbled himself quite a bit to ask for help in that way. Like,
From another
put
king,
himself
too.
below him,
Yeah.
almost. I thought that was
Don't see
interesting.
much of that anymore.
That does seem out of character for Ahaz.
It really does, because he's like, I'm too great, or I'm not worthy to ask God for help, but I'll ask this other king for help and humble myself under him.
Maybe he kind of just thought he had Baal on his side, or the other gods,
Molech.
Molech. I don't know.
He went so far in his idolatry. If you go to 2 Chronicles 28, I did some other studying for this. But if you go to chapter 28, verse 25, it says he went so far as to in every several city of Judah, he made high places to burn incense to other gods and provoked to anger the Lord God of his fathers. He went so far as to put high places in several cities of Judah. Like, not just over here in Israel and go serve those places, but serve in Judea, however you want to say it, itself. That's amazing to me.
So Ahaz is dead.
This is bringing flashbacks.
Yeah, I'll just do this every episode. I'll always announce the death of our beloved kings. So, yeah, Ahaz dies at the end of 16, I believe. And so, starting off in chapter 17, we're going to learn about the reign of another king. Which one was it? Hoshea. I'm not going to read too much on him, but so in the chapters 7 through 18, we learn of how Israel fell. And so we serve a very jealous God. In Exodus, nope, wrong one. Hold up. In Exodus 34:14, it says, "For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God." So we learn of how Israel fell in verses 7 through 18. I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm going to touch on a few. So it says, "For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their God. And they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city." So, Israel was always secretly sinning, even though, God would constantly, so I'm like, I see what y'all are doing, but they're like, oh, if we build these high places,
They're
God
high
ain't gonna
places.
see us. He's not gonna see us.
But you go to a high place to be seen.
Yeah.
If you're at a high place, that's
like-
a place where you're most likely
It's like
to be
putting yourself
seen.
on a pedestal, and they're like, he ain't gonna see us. He's like, no.
I think it's more so just like a sin where you just don't really think about it much. Like you'll partake in it, and then the rest of the time you're like, oh no, I'm fine. It's justified, and you try and justify it. And
Well, wouldn't they make their sacrifices every year to the Lord in his temple? If they feared the Lord, they were supposed to, do their sacrifices once a year to cover all their sins.
it was kind of a worse sin because they were kind of in-betweeners.
In verse 17, might as well touch on the first part, because I know you really like to talk about this one, but so, "And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger." Now that angers me, because they're like, I purposely want to anger God, and it's mind-boggling that after all, how many times God spared these people,
Hundreds
they're
of
still
years.
they're like, I want to treat them this way, I want to treat them badly, and so I was thinking about this, and I was like, I was basically casting judgment on all these people, but then I was like, not to go too deep, but I've done God this way, where I've put something above him, or I didn't have him as a main priority, and I didn't have high places, I didn't burn incense or anything. He's a jealous God, and I've definitely done some things to make him jealous, and I've put things above him. And it was verse 18, "Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight, and there was none left but the tribe of Judah only." Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, I was like, in this life, the last thing I want is to be removed from the presence of God. Yeah. And I was like, I feel like these people just weren't right in the head, because I'm like, how could you not want to be in God's presence?
Right.
That's such an important thing. I was literally praying about that last night. You touched on something I prayed on last night. Literally, even David himself was begging. He begged God, do not take your presence from me. You can take anything else from me, just not your presence. Because the presence of God is the presence of life and love itself.
Well, the Lord was a priority to David.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a priority to these people, and we see
true.
how God gets mad at them. He still has mercy on them for the most part, but he still, is angry, it says.
The amazing thing is, he gave them 10 commandments. 10 commandments. He has a few other rules, right? But the main thing was these 10 commandments. Follow these 10 commandments, and, you'll be right with God. And then they have all these other gods that they decide
Verse 19, "Also Judah kept not the commandments of the Lord their God."
and served a bunch of other gods. Now, it's interesting, too, because in chapter 17, verses 35, 37, and 38, they all mention the phrase, relatively, don't fear other gods. God was specifically telling them multiple times, don't serve other gods. Don't serve other gods. You've done this for hundreds of years and it's never worked out for you. Don't do it. And yet they still did it anyway. I mean, despite it not working for them. And all they had to do was 10 simple commandments.
It even says, "But the Lord your God ye shall fear, and he shall deliver you out of the hand of all your enemies." So they had victory right there. They had freedom right there, and they still chose to worship in the high places, to sacrifice to Molech, all these awful sins that their fathers did, just because they're kind of living in this, well, my fathers did it, well, all these other people are doing it, I'm going to continue to do it, I'm going to continue in my own ways instead of doing like what I individually think is right.
They need to break generational curses.
Can we talk about how there was lions sent out? Verse 25 of chapter 17.
So the Lord even warns them and says, "Fear me," and they don't want anything to do with him. And so he sends lions to slay them, just casually. And this definitely provokes fear in them, and that's when they kind of start to listen. But they don't really take heed to what he's saying in their hearts. They still kind of just do their own thing. They all even hear about the lions too, because more people, the word that God sent lions carries throughout the land. A good way to end is that they did not listen, even after the lions, even after God warns them time and time and time again. In verse 40, it says, "Howbeit they did not hearken, but they did after their former manner. So these nations feared the Lord, served their graven images, both their children and their children's children, as did their fathers. So do they unto this day." They did not listen. And it's really heartbreaking and sad that they still feared the Lord. They know he's there, and they do not hearken to what he says. They do not listen. They still turn away from him each and every day.
Soon after this leads into captivity for Israel and Judah, but we'll get into that, once we get further into Kings, which will be later. But we have something else to talk about.
Okay, so here we have the Oasis magazine. It is filled with articles about people's testimonies and what God's brought them through. I think this one's specifically about Thanksgiving and stuff,
Being
and being thankful.
It looks like it.
Yeah, I would,
Very fall
I
colored.
would say so. We actually have a segment from Faith's family here. I don't know what it's about.
Hi.
Raising children in this generation.
Oh, that's my
It's
mom.
about raising
That's kind of
children.
what we talked
So,
about.
For all our parents,
Yeah.
that would probably be a good one to read. We actually have another one that talks about Mitchell's mom and how the Lord helped her here a few months back. But yeah, you can learn more about what it's like to work at the TV ministry. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. We will see you next week with chapters 18 and 19.
Thank you for joining us at Anthony Wynn Ministries. This is our 20th year of touching hearts and changing lives through TV ministry. And this is made possible by our partners. Because of your kindness, we have reached over 150 million homes worldwide, and we're currently in the process of constructing a new office space and studio building. It is our goal to double in size this year and add new stations to our outreach. Currently, we send out thousands of free resources monthly, and your donations and partnerships make this possible. Partner with us today and become part of our ministry as we reach an orphanage in Haiti, a recovery center, and all our local missions. When you partner with us, you can receive a free DVD or CD, a monthly newsletter, and an Oasis magazine. Just call 1-877-226-4088 or visit our website at anthonywynn.org. Thank you. God bless you.